Hello, today we are going to talk about how to subtract fractions and different types of subtraction problems. The first one is how to subtract like denominators. There's 3 simple steps. Step 1 is to subtract the numerators. For example, in this problem, the numerators are 10 and 6. Therefore, we would get 4 after subtracting the numerators. Step 2, keep that common denominator, which in this case was 11. Step 3, we've discussed in class that step 3 is optional. In this case, step 3, reduce, is not even possible. Therefore, our solution would be 4/11. Now, sometimes you'll be asked to subtract fractions that have unlike denominators, which could be a little bit more involved. Step number 1 is to find the LCD. So if we focus on our denominators here, 5 and 4, and think about our common multiples, hopefully we will remember that 20 is the least common multiple of 5 and 4. Step number 2 is to find the equivalent fractions. We must have multiplied by 4. Therefore, we're going to do the same for the numerator here. And in the second fraction, we multiplied by 5 to get the 20. So we're going to do the same for the numerator here. Step number 3 is to subtract the numerators. Well, 12 minus 5 is 7. Step 4, keep that common denominator. And again, the last step is optional. And in this particular answer, not even possible. Now, sometimes you'll be asked to subtract whole numbers and fractions. So step number 1 is to rewrite the whole number so that it looks like a mixed fraction. You're going to use the denominator of the second fraction in order to determine your mixed number. For example, the whole number in this problem is a 9. In order to subtract 2/3 from 9, we're just going to rewrite 9 to be 8 and 3 over 3. Since the second fraction had a denominator of 3, the fraction is 3 over 3, and 8, all of that is equal to 9. So we just rewrote the 9. Copy the rest of the problem. Step 2, now that we've done that, subtract your numerators and your whole number. Keep that denominator, and again, reducing is optional, and in this particular answer, not even possible, 8 1/3. Sometimes you'll be asked to subtract mixed numbers from each other. The first step anyway, is to find the LCD. In this case, my denominators are 5 and 9. Hopefully we remember that 45 is the least common multiple between those two. Therefore, 45 is my common denominator. Step number 2 is to find the equivalent fraction. Well, hopefully we remember 9 and 5 gave me the 45, so 4 and 9 is 36. Over here, 9 and 5 gave us the 45, so 2 and 5 gives us 10. Step number 3, subtract the numerators and the whole numbers. So in this case, we have 36 minus 10, which is 26. 3 minus 1, which is 2. Step 4 is to keep that common denominator of 45, making my answer 2 and 26 over 45. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is how to subtract when you have to borrow. Just like when you're subtracting whole numbers, sometimes you have to borrow. It's the same principle with fractions. Sometimes you're going to have to borrow from the whole. So, let's go through an example together. First, you're going to start by finding the LCD and the equivalent fraction. So I'm going to look at my denominators, 3 and 6, and I know that 6 is a common multiple of these two. And now I need to go back and find my equivalent fractions. We multiply by 2 here, so we're going to do the same for the numerator. And here we just copied, so I'm just going to copy that numerator. Now, step 2, borrow one whole from the whole number and add that whole to the fraction. So this is what we are saying in step 2. If you notice, you cannot subtract the numerators. You cannot do 2 minus 5. And when that happens, you're going to have to borrow from the whole number in the mixed fraction. So instead of this being 4, we're going to drop that down to 3. That 1 whole that you took from the 4 now needs to be added to the fraction. So I'm adding 6 over 6, or 1, to the fraction 2 over 6. And the reason why I picked 6 over 6 is because the denominator was 6. And 1 whole is 6 over 6. So now I'm going to add these fractions, 2 6 plus 6 over 6. Copy the whole number. And then copy the second fraction in the problem. Now, step 3 says to subtract the numerators, and also don't forget to subtract the whole numbers, and you're going to keep that common denominator. So we have 8 minus 5, which is 3, 3 minus 1, which is 2, and the common denominator was 6. Again, reducing is optional, and if we chose to reduce this fraction, the answer would be 2 1/2.